Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We are going to be doing part 10 of my beginner crochet series today. We're going to be learning the puff stitch, but if you haven't learned parts 1 through 9 and watch those in order, please follow the links below in the description box to make sure that you know all of those steps before moving on with part 10. So today in part 10 we're going to be learning about the puff stitch, which is a more advanced stitch than probably everything we've covered so far. It's definitely still very easy. It's just a series of yarn overs, kind of similar to a double crochet with a lot more yarn overs going on. The only drawback to this stitch is that it is a little bit of what we call a yarn eater. It definitely, you will go through a lot of yarn. I usually use an entire skein of worsted weight yarn to make one like adult size beanie with this stitch. So keep that in mind when using it. If you're using the puff stitch to make like an afghan or a blanket, it's definitely going to use several skeins more than if you did a more basic, half double crochet or something like that. So definitely keep that in mind, but it is a beautiful stitch. It's definitely worth using more yarn, in my opinion. I also have a video that's on my page. I'll put a link below in the description box for that one too. It's a puff stitch slouchy beanie, which is definitely my most popular by far, and everyone that makes it has a very easy time following the pattern and is very pleased with the result. It's a really cute hat, so I definitely recommend practicing this stitch on something like that, because you'll definitely get a good amount of practice of puff stitches, because that's what makes up most of that pattern. So let's go ahead and learn the puff stitch. So I'm starting here with just a row of single crochets and working off of that to have a nice starting point, and we're going to skip the first stitch and we're going to go into that second one from the hook. So the second single crochet from the hook, you're going to insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and insert your hook and pull up a loop. So 3 yarn overs and loops pulled up, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook except for one. So you have 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through those last 2. So that is your puff stitch, and then you're just going to chain 1, and then you're going to skip the next single crochet and go into the next one after that. So 2 stitches away, you're going to do 3 of those yarn overs and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through everything on your hook except for the last loop, and then yarn over, pull through those 2 loops and chain 1, and then you're going to skip the next stitch and go into the following one. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through everything except that last one. So you have 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through both. And just do that all the way down the line. Your last puff stitch in this row, if you had 10 single crochets to start off with, which is what I did, is going to be in that very last stitch. So you'll have a puff right on the end, kind of sticking out, but we'll fix that in this next row. So you're just going to chain up 2 and then turn your work. So now you see a bunch of puff stitches with some spaces in between that are those chain spaces from those chain ones. And what we're going to do is stitch in the chain spaces. So instead of doing a puff stitch in the top of an actual stitch, we're going to go in that chain space. So same thing we did before, 3 yarn overs and loops pulled up, and then pull through all of them except for the last one, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops and chain 1 once again. Same process, it's just this time we are going in those chain spaces instead of in the tops of stitches. And no matter how many rows of puff stitches you're doing here, you're going to continue from this point on always going into the chain spaces. You're just going to alternate chain spaces on each row, so that way you wind up with more of like a bricklaying pattern. So here we are just finishing the second row of puff stitches into those chain spaces all the way down. And it should look like a kind of alternating brick pattern. And your last puff stitch is going to go in that chain space from the very beginning of your first row. So when you chained up 2, That's the space that you're putting your last puff stitch on row 2. So now you have a nice even looking square with that kind of bricklaying pattern and some really nice puff stitches. So just go ahead and practice this one. And that is it for part 10, and you're ready to move on to part 11. Thanks for watching.